Portuguese of the 17th century saw the power of the Mutapa state already crumbling because of internal conflicts. Do you agree? Introduction. The piecemeal castration of the Mutapa body politic at the kickstart of the 17th century was at first flexed by internal frictions, but it was lifted up by the Portuguese burdensome in the Mutapa affairs. The thrust of this essay paper seeks to debate on Maravi incursions, Chirara Mauro and Matuzi Anewe, Matuzi Ane according to Mudenge rebellions, Gatsirusere, Philip I's rule, Mamvura Mande's era, Mutapa's purpose and how the state was colonized, and the main implications of Portuguese meddling in the Mutapa state. Mudenge 1988 submits that it was lack of coherent leadership and poor institutions within Mutapa governmental system that impinged and caused the crumbling of the state. The Portuguese illegal obstruction caused the solemn or gloomy volatility, which later on caused the endless pass out and fall of the Mutapa state. The snow slip of droughts, Mufekan incursions, and the coming in of the British hammer-boxed Mutapa influence. Body. After the mutiny of Chirara Mauro was not efficacious due to the fact that it was quickly shriveled out by the nauseating clout loftier firearm of the Portuguese, Chirara Mauro expired at the hands of an enemy. His place was taken by one Matuzi Anewe or Matuzi Ane, a man described by Beach 1980 and Mudenge 1988 as a head keeper of the Mutapa skettle. Matuzi Anewe's rise from subjection to Mutapaship discloses the terrible flaw of the Mutapa's political and administrative construction. Matuzi Anewe's revolt is successful. He topples Rusere and conducted a lingering war against him and his Portuguese associates. In this frenzied bliss, insurgents advance all over the Mutapa, and Gatsirusere is forced to capitulate due to the lack of Portuguese firepower to subdue Matuzi Anewe and other rebellions. The heartbreak of the Mutapa state is perceived by the concentration of all power in the hands of one dreadful spearhead. No man is watertight or sound. Intermittently, Gatsirusere resorted to dictatorship and insensitive agendas. Gatsirusere tainted his power to begin with when he had the Nengo Masha executed and finally the ruler Samangazi. These painful acts estranged the state when people assembled to Matuzi Anewe and exposed his cause. The carnage of the ruler Tonga had some upshots to the Tonga, loathing and insurgents against Gatsirusere, and was nevertheless not able to reassert his authority over again. The Mutapa state was petrifying in Gatsirusere's face. Ranger 1988 cited that there was friction between the state and the ruled. As the king's illness affected the welfare of the entire, the Mutapaship was a symbol of unity. Gatsirusere's illogicality and junior acts did not indicate well to his subjects. It stirred anxiety and concern amongst the Mutapa, in which they were forced to dissent against him. Gatsirusere's temporal disposition charged the Mutapa state into mobocracy. Political disorders might have also stemmed from the fact that the empire was too large to be efficiently administered by a person full of peculiar imperfections and Portuguese boasting. By the onset of the 17th century, the peace and prosperity of the Mutapa Empire was disturbed by the Maravi brigands. Gatsirusere's quick mobilization and total Portuguese support in calming these Maravi intrusions is a notable index of the Mutapa strength and forthright bonds at this period. Rusere's instantaneous drive against the Maravi plunderers was mainly qualified to the Portuguese military support, and in gratitude, Gatsirusere made conclusions with the Portuguese, which finally led to its downfall. Mudenge 1988, page 227 says that it is said that Gatsirusere was so pleased with Portuguese contribution that he decreed that from that day on the Portuguese would be allowed to enter his country with guns, a thing which was strictly forbidden by his predecessors before. This temporal relaxation by the Mutapa of his previous ban on the carrying of firearms by the Portuguese was unwise, and it rooted to the rise of the Portuguese political power within the state. Rusere's father granted the Dominican priest permission to build churches at ferias all over the Mutapa state. The Dominican fathers were able to spread their Christian faith, which dichotomized and antagonized the traditionalists. These religious frictions led to sectarianism, which sagged the Mutapa's people pitted again one after another in bloody civil wars, which exhausted the Mutapa's strength in terms of human and material resources. Don Philip's agitation against his father is a case to cheer. However, the latent weakness of the Mutapa's political structure is glaringly publicized when he ordered the execution of the Nongomasha, the victorious commander of his forces in the Maravi campaign, and plunged the state into a civil war. Both Denge 1988 and Bish 1980 agreed that it was Gatsirisere's irrationality at this moment of victory that unleashed a civil war and temporarily cost him his throne. Mudenge 1988 ascribes harsh behavior to his addiction to marijuana or mbanji, which must have impaired his judgment and decision as a single person. Gatsirisere's alienation from the Tonga brought him to total annihilation with both the Tonga and Matuzwe Anewe's forces. Gatsirisere is rescued from the jaws of defeat by Portuguese military firepower. These persistent reawakening wars brought about by Gatsirisere's pugnacity took their toll of the Mutapa state. Gatsirisere's aggressiveness might have stemmed in his need to reassert his authority and regain his throne. Invariably, the Mutapa Empire is damaged both politically and economically. The loss in human and material resources is too substantial. Thousands lost their lives, village razed to the ground, and crops destroyed. The countryside is torn by civil wars, depopulation, and petrifying ruins. The people suffer, the state suffers, and the Mutapa state weakens. The empire reached its lowest ebb. Gatsirisere's harmonious relationship with the Portuguese were mainly due to civil war. Mudenge 1988 asserts that, in gratitude, Gatsi gave jurisdiction over the surrounding land chiefs to the Portuguese in terms of all the minerals in the Mutapa state and the lands of the Zambezi Valley. Mudenge 1988, page 229 says that on 1 August 1607, the later Gatsirisere gave all the mines of gold, silver, copper, iron, lead, and penta to the Portuguese found in his empire to Madeira, who immediately donated them to the Portuguese king. These concessions and land grants visibly undermined the position of the Mutapa, and the Portuguese had an upper hand in future dealings with the Mutapa. The Portuguese were able to catalyze these opportunities in the Zambezi Valley by creating their own large estates, later known as prazos. To be precise, the prazo holders were vassal chiefs under the Mutapa, possessing allegiance to him, but these Portuguese settlers were able to exploit the situation by nurturing their own private armies, commonly known as chicundas. The Portuguese military weakens the Mutapa, and they went to the extent of challenging the Mutapa authority. These sinister motives and treacherous nature of the Portuguese is revealed when they aided an anti-Gatsirusere faction, as Chiringa rebels Marenga had been brought by the Dominican became a Portuguese in nothing except blood. Don Philip's case serves well to infiltrate the forces now at work against Mutapaship, which eventually leads to its decline. Beach 1980 and Mudenge 1988 argue that Gatsirusere's attitude towards the Portuguese hardens, and he becomes impervious to the Portuguese entrenchments or friendships. Beach 1980, page 127, says that there was a cause. Portuguese society both made the monopoly of the Mutapa's gold, silver, and dispelled any foreign influences from the Mutapa state. The Portuguese were made to carry out their wanton destruction without fear or distraction from the Muslims or the Mutapa. The Portuguese expropriated the Mutapa's lands, established fortified garrisons, and conscripted the locals into private militias. From these centers, the prazo holders carried sporadic raids on the surrounding lands, capturing cattle, grain, and people to be enslaved. These callous acts depopulated the countryside and depleted the natural resources such as gold and silver. Mamvura is powerless to act. The Mutapa state is succumbed to Portuguese avariciousness, and it had reached its lowest ebb again. The Mutapa state was now just a status symbol and real power with the Portuguese. Mamvura dies a disillusioned man, cut off from his people. Portuguese cupidity and brutality had achieved the impossible. Capitulation and submission of the Mutapa and his people to the Portuguese. The Portuguese dominated the Mutapa politics for a length period. The itsy-bitsy or gradual intensification of the Portuguese influence in the Mutapa state was not a sequestered event. The Portuguese were constructing their heartless presence felt or sensed. The various Mutapas were victims of their autocratic political structures, which gave them free rein to vent their unchecked action on their unfortunate subjects. The misfortunes of the Mutapa state stemmed from its political institutions, which were a product of strict rule and Portuguese dispersions. Dynastic rivalries or grudges, individual Mutapas' incompetencies, Portuguese intrigues, coupled with Portuguese capacity, eroded the Mutapa power and led to the decline of the state. The individual Mutapas were induced to cooperate with the Portuguese not out of their own free will, but through fear of Portuguese influence. The magnitude of the state was reduced, lawlessness prevailed, civil wars exploded due to Portuguese prying, and eventually the state suffered. It was the Portuguese realization of the weakness of the Mutapa and of their own power which led them divulge their mayhem and rapacity. Towards the end of his reign, Gatsirusere's relationship with the Portuguese incessantly declined to pay the traditional Kuva tax, but selfishly demanded that the Mutapa should show them the silver mines of Chikova, earmarking in the knowledge that the Mutapas were powerless to act against them. Rusere achieves a number of victories against the Portuguese landowners and reasserts his authority. Beach 1980, page 128, submits that by the end of his reign he was tightening up the etiquette at his court and insisting that Portuguese visitors pay him full respects he had been required of the 70 years earlier. By the end of his life, Gatsirusere had appreciated the grave nuisance of the Portuguese postured to his muscle and empire and was opening to fuse his power. However, Gatsirusere was a prey of his actions and lack of skill. Gatsirusere's death signals the coming in of a civil war, and the Mutapa ship finally slipped and becomes a Portuguese puppet. The throne is disputed by one Nyambo Kapararidze, Gatsirusere's son, a natural successor, and Mamvura Mande, the uncle who claims to be the rightful Mutapa. In these civil wars between the natural heirs of Gatsirusere and his relatives, Portuguese characteristically support one dominant against another. At this critical moment, when the Mutapa state was devastated by civil wars, it was attacked by Maravi bandits. With the Mutapa hanging by a single thread, Kapararidze spells out its doom when he declares an out-out war against the Portuguese. Kapararidze's attempt to crush the Portuguese power was ill-timed. Mudenge 1988 argues that Kapararidze's audacity and lack of foresight made him overlook and underestimate Portuguese military superiority. Nyambo Kapararidze tasted defeat at the hands of the Portuguese and their hand-picked Ali Mamvura Mande. Mamvura realized his dreams when he was made the Mutapa. Mamvura, the cartoon leader, paid a heavy price for the state's decline. Mamvura is made to submit his power to the Portuguese, which virtually strips off all his power, and he becomes a toothless leader. Beach 1980 and Mudenge 1988 both agree that the terms of his precarious situation was damaging and humiliating in the face of reality. The Portuguese are given land as they pleased in the Mutapa state. Davidson, 1967, argued that the Mutapa state was now a colony of the Portuguese king in Europe. This sets a far-reaching example for Portuguese power and influence in the Mutapa state. The Portuguese managed to secure themselves center command, crucial to stretch all the Mutapas. Here, after marking the passing ding-dong or echo of the Mutapa state in the 17th century, the host-sense determination and movement of such leaders like Zwangendaba Maseko and the much civilized Sisi John Rhodes sealed completely the Mutapa body politic. The spasmodic culmination and revivification of the Mutapa bumped into its overall kismet due to peripheral influences to a large extent. My name is Kelvin Trevor Makomeke. I'm a history pundit. I teach history up to A level.